Welcome back to Screaming Whispers, where we study the paranormal, cryptids, both unsolved and solved mysteries, and give everyday people like you a platform for your encounters, research, and development, and for your voices to be heard. Alright, everybody, so today is just going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be doing an informational video on Portlock, Alaska, one of the biggest mysteries the United States has to offer. In 1786, a Captain Nathaniel Portlock of the Royal British Navy set sail to discover new lands. It wasn't until 1787 that he sailed into the Bay of Port Chatham and discovered what is now Portlock, Alaska. Located on the southern end of the Kenai Peninsula, it's also located a little further north than a very infamous island known as the Kodiak Island. Kodiak Island is known for its species of brown bear known as Kodiak bears. They are actually a subspecies of the brown bear and are actually the largest bear in the world. An adult male can stand over 10 feet tall on its hind legs. Portlock, Alaska is really only accessible by bush plane or boat, but there is an ongoing argument between the locals that you could get there with an ATV. But guys, the safest and easiest way is just to take a bush plane or a boat. There is not much history between the times of 1787 until the early 20th century, other than a cannery was established, chromite mines were established, people started to move to Portlock with the establishment of the mine and the cannery because it offered up a lot of great jobs for people in the surrounding area. People from Port Chatham, an actual adjacent town, would come over and work in the cannery. Alright, y'all, I managed to snag an actual picture of what the cannery looked like in its prime. Behind the cannery, you can see a tree line. The tree line consists of very tall pine trees and fir trees. This is what the area consisted of. It was a very rugged terrain. Although it was very plentiful in game, such as moose, bear, stuff like that, even small game, the visibility was very limited the second that you stepped into the tree line. And also, within that time, logging industries started to boom. So not only was there a cannery established, there was a chromite mine established, and then you had all these loggers coming into the area and starting to cut all of these trees down, which ultimately ran a lot of the game population out of that area. I want to take a quick second just to add a personal thought. With all of this logging and the cannery being established and the chromite mine being established, and all of these people are starting to come to the area to work and to kind of start colonizing or settling, that would be a better term, settling the area, it started to run out some of the game population. And if anybody knows the story of Portlock, Alaska, it's the story of the hairy man, or what is known as the more aggressive form of a Sasquatch. You think all these people coming in and taking away its food? I think that they went in there and pissed this thing off royally. So, with that being said, let's take a little bit of a deeper look at Portlock. So, during the time this place is being settled, it turns into a very peaceful and very quiet fishing town. The residents love this place. And then all of a sudden, all these reports come flooding in, and it's like Portlock, this dark cloud was cast over Portlock. For example, in 1905, a report came in where cannery workers ultimately abandoned their job for a season because there was something that was attacking and harassing them in the area. But coming back the next season, that thing, whatever it was still in the area, attacking and harassing the cannery workers. And then, all of a sudden, hunters and miners start going missing. And I'm not talking about one miner here, one hunter there. I'm talking about hunting parties are going missing. And the people going out and looking for them are going missing, and they're not returning. So something is going on in this area. In my personal opinion, the more I go through the story and the more I go through the timeline of events, it almost as if seems that the more people that ended up coming to Portlock, the more gruesome the reports became. I have done extensive research on this town just to be able to provide this video for you guys, and it started out as harassment and then ended up as full-blooded murder. Here's an example. In the early 1920s, an Albert Petka was out in the woods with his dogs. A big, angry, hairy man beast came at him, and his dogs ended up chasing it away. Not before Albert Petka suffered a fatal blow to the chest. Before he died of his injuries, he was the first man able to give a description of what the beast was. And his roundabout words were, a big, hairy man beast. Even with these gruesome reports rolling in that there is something in the area, in 1921, Portlock, Alaska was officially established as a town within the United States of America, with erecting its very first post office. After the establishment of Portlock and the death of Albert Petka, it seemed just for a very brief moment that everything calmed down and Portlock was at peace again. Until the year of 1931, another gruesome report came in. A man was found murdered with blunt force trauma consisting in a single blow that no man was able to inflict. It is said the murder weapon is a piece of logging equipment that a single man, cannot pick up and wield on their own, and it was over 10 feet away from the dead body. So now, the reports are back with a vengeance, each more gruesome than the one before. Another report comes in of a group of men hunting through the woods. They're tracking a moose. As they're tracking a moose, they come upon an 18-inch humanoid footprint impressed in the mud, going in seemingly the same direction that their prey is going in, almost as if whatever belongs to that footprint is stalking the same prey. But the men pass it off and continue to hunt, coming upon a gruesome scene in a clearing, almost as if a huge fight ensued. Limbs were knocked around, there was blood everywhere, it was just awful. And the moose's footprints went into the clearing, and the only footprints that left that clearing was that of the 18-inch humanoid footprint that walked up into the mountains. Alright, I'm just gonna put in my personal opinion right here. Do I believe that that 18-inch footprint could have belonged to a man? Possibly. The largest footprint recorded, I think, is 36 inches, and it belonged to a human being. Do I believe that there was a barefoot man out in the woods, in the Alaskan wilderness, hunting a moose with no kind of firearm? Absolutely not. Um, I mean, there are people that are crazy enough to possibly go and do that, but I think the moose would definitely come out the victor each and every time. I do believe there are moose attacks, and I do believe that moose have killed people. So, um, whatever killed that moose that night, I don't believe was human. And now we move on to one of the most gruesome reports there is. And it's more of a rumor, but it needs to be mentioned. Those hunters and miners started to appear, but they didn't appear in the fashion that you would think that they would have appeared in. They appeared in pieces, washed up on the shore for their friends and family to find them. Now, these pieces were ripped in ways that no human being and no bear could perform on their own. It's virtually impossible. With the rumors getting worse and worse and the reports coming in worse and worse, the cannery and the chromite mine were left abandoned. The workers refused to go back to work without armed guards. Eventually, in the year of 1949, the whole town was left abandoned. It was almost as if it was overnight that the town disappeared from Portlock. The residents had left for good, and to this day absolutely refuse to return to that area, the residents including their descendants. It wasn't until 1950, a whole year later, that the postmaster left Portlock, Alaska. Only foundations of the buildings can be seen today. Could this have been the very first time that the hairy man in reported history has ever pushed back human civilization? Many Bigfoot researchers and even thrill seekers return to the area trying to put together what once was Portlock, Alaska, and even try to encounter the infamous hairy monster. Encounters come in even still today, they're reported, and the most common description of the hairy man is more closely related to the Canadian Sasquatch because of its size. The hairy man can stand anywhere from like 10 to 15 feet tall, and it's extremely aggressive because throughout Portlock history it murdered many people, and I'm sure there had to be more than one of them. So I would more closely relate the aggression towards the Ohio grass ape, in my personal opinion. Alright, guys, so what I gave you was the more gruesome side of Portlock. If you're interested in how it came up and how it started to flourish before it was left abandoned, there are many websites on the internet that tell you about the actual history of Portlock, Alaska, outside of the gruesome murders. I would go check that out. I think it was kind of cool. Definitely how the cannery was established, and Portlock was a beautiful town, guys. Alright, guys, I know it's short, but I'll see you in the next video. The next one's gonna be an interview. Have a good night.